Good afternoon. My name is Stretch Hoff, and I'm an interviewer for the Public Library of Cincinnati. And today we have Mr. Ed Reilly is going to tell us his story, and Dennis Daly is also here to help us with the camera work. So, welcome.
Thank you.
Feeling good today?
No.
We'll get off to a better start.
Yeah.
Well, as we mentioned, this purpose is to have you tell us your life story, basically, which includes your service in World War II.
Okay.
So we like to just start out with where you were born and when, and go from there.
Okay. Did I start?
Yes.
Well, I was born in New York City. I don't know exactly. I was born in one hospital on 85th Street, New York City. But I didn't stay there very long. We moved from there to Long Island. And
what year was that when you were born?
1918.
1918.
Yes, this is a long time ago.
Yeah.
But then we moved around a few times on Long Island until I went to high school in Lawrence, Long Island, and I graduated when I was 16 years old. I was pretty young, because I skipped a few classes and all that moving we did, they skipped me. And so when I graduated, I got a job in New York City on Wall Street and Broadway. Sounds big, but
it does sound big.
It was nothing. It was.
I bet you're glad you're not there right now.
I was making $10 a week.
Is that right? What were you doing?
In Central Hanover Bank on 70 Broadway. That's right on the corner of Wall Street and Broadway. And we could look out our window on the first floor to the stock exchange. And it was interesting, but it didn't pay any money.
Yeah. Now, is that bank still there today?
No, I don't think so.
It's probably been
I haven't heard of
swallowed up by someone else.
Yeah, I haven't heard of Central Hanover Bank at all. So I stayed in the, although I didn't like it, I wasn't made to be a banker.
What were you doing?
Well, they called us page boys, and then the officers would press a button and the light would light up, and we'd have to go and answer the button and run around the bank and deliver things and do things of that sort. But I stayed there for 9 years, and finally I got a decent job. The Army got me, so I started to make some money. But I was drafted in the Air Force, and I don't know how many months I stayed in the Air Force.
And what year was this?
In what?
What year was it that you were drafted?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
It was around 1942, or 9 years?
It was about in the early 40s, I think. I can't remember that far back. So
Well, how do you get drafted? Once you were drafted right into the Army Air Corps?
Right into the Air Force, yeah.
Okay. So was it your preference to go in the Air Force?
In what?
Was it your choice to go in the Air Force?
No, I didn't have a choice to do anything, but I just lucked out. I tell you, I think I was just the luckiest guy in the world. Because wait till I tell you. So I was at Turner Field in Georgia, Turner Field, and they sent us home on leave before they were going to send us overseas. So I go home on leave, and after I'm home for about a couple of weeks, I reported back to Turner Field, and there are orders, you won't get this, orders to report to Officers Candidate School in Miami Beach, Florida. You say, that's why I say I was just as lucky as could be. So here I am in Miami Beach learning how to be an officer. And so I graduated from that. And
Could I take one step back? When you were in training in
Turner Field?
Turner Field,
I was a private.
were you learning how to fly a plane then?
No, I had nothing to do with just administration work.
Oh, okay.
Administration.
All right.
No, I had nothing to do with flying. I never did fly a plane.
Okay.
But, so,
So now you go to OCS at
oh, yeah. I went to
Miami Beach.
Miami Beach. And Clark Gable was in the same class as I was, and he graduated too, yeah. So after that, they transferred me to Nashville, Tennessee. And there I was very fortunate too. My wife was with me.
When did you meet your wife?
The what?
When did you meet your wife?
In Long Island.
Okay. Wasn't Miami Beach?
No, it wasn't on Miami Beach. It was Long Island.
Okay.
And we were engaged before I went into the service. So, she walked up and down the streets in Nashville and found a family that were renting a room or an apartment. So I lived in the apartment, even though I was stationed in Nashville. And I was lucky in this respect that the man that owned the apartment was a salesman, and he worked for a company in Dayton. And before I left Nashville, he said, Ed, he said, if you're ever looking for a job, when you get out of the service, I said, well, I'm not going back to that bank, that's for sure. And so he said, look me up, and I did. When I got out of the service, I was in the service for 4 years. When I got out, I looked him up, and he gave me a job, and I worked in New York for about a year. And then they transferred me to Cincinnati. And I was with them for 20 years. So
What company was that?
Agri Register Company.
Oh, yeah.
EGRY. They did printing.
Uh-huh.
I'm getting hoarse.
When you, after OCS in Miami Beach, then you went to Nashville.
Yeah.
And what did you do in Nashville? Did you get additional training there?
They made me a squadron commander. And it was on the Buckingham Field in Nashville, and they trained all new men to be pilots, navigators, or bombardiers, and I was a squadron commander. And I think I got a promotion, and I made it second lieutenant, first lieutenant by that time. And then I was stationed there for a long time. And finally they sent me to China.
Now, were you always in the administrative end of things?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's all I was, just administration.
Okay. Good.
And
So,
I never did any fighting or anything of that sort.
okay.
But then
So how old were you when you were sent to China? And what year was that?
I think I was about 23, 24. I went to Kunming, China. That's where, let's see, the Chinese, I can't remember now. He was stationed at the Chinese. He was in charge of the Chinese, but he wasn't in charge of me. So they got me over there and made me a mess officer. I didn't know anything about mess, but they made me, I said, I don't know anything about, I had a major that was over me. And I said, I don't know anything about mess officer. But I said, if you promote me, I'd learn.
I'll learn.
So they promoted me to a captain. So there I was.
Is that right?
Yeah, I was a captain. And
Now, when you were, so what year were you in China? Was this like
oh, gee, I can't remember date. It was about
1944 maybe?
40, yeah, 42, 43, something like that.
Okay.
And I was only over there 9 months.
Back in 43, somebody was born at Vanderbilt Hospital in Nashville.
Yeah, 43?
That's Pat.
Okay, 43.
If that's a clue for you.
Okay.
And on the way over, they flew me over from Miami and landed me in the Azores. And then from the Azores, they sent me to Africa. And from Africa, they sent me to India.
My goodness.
And from India, they sent me to China, Kunming, China, and I stayed there.
And what was your job? What was the
I was a mess officer.
officer?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't do anything. I had some sergeant did it all. But they promoted me anyway.
Now, where were you, like when the Normandy invasion?
No, I was
I know
over-
you weren't there, but I mean, where were you when that happened?
Oh, I was in China.
In China by that time?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're 43, 44, probably in China. What did you think of all that?
What was that?
What did you think about that when that happened?
What, the invasion?
Yeah.
I don't think I thought much of it. I was glad. I was glad that we did,
Yeah.
but I wasn't involved in it at all.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, my brother-in-law was killed in it. That was a sad thing. Nothing worse than having a child killed in the service. No, I didn't think much of it. But I stayed in, as I said, I stayed in China for 9 months, and then they sent me back to India and put me on a ship. And then we went through the Suez Canal. That was interesting.
Yeah.
Suez Canal and the Mediterranean and Straits of Gibraltar. And this was in the wintertime. And we came across the Atlantic. Boy, it was cold. And I was lucky. I had a stateroom on the top deck.
You sound like you lived pretty well in the service.
I don't know. That's how I told you. It was rough. The seas were very, very rough.
Yeah.
Didn't bother me at all.
Yeah.
I guess because I lived a long time in Long Island at the ocean.
Yeah, you had some rough winters up there too.
Yeah. So they said, if you sign up for another year, we'll let you go home right now. So I was able to get to a phone, and I called my wife. She says, sign up. So I did, and I stayed for another year.
Okay. But you came back home.
Yeah, this was in the United
You
States.
stayed in the United States for that
I
year.
was in Dover, Delaware.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, where were you, because the build-up to attack China was happening.
What do I?
Well, where were you when they dropped the bombs in Hiroshima? And
I think I was in China.
Were you there then?
Yeah, I think I was in China, but it wasn't anywhere. I wasn't anywhere near that.
Yeah. But that had to be a great experience, I would think. What did the people think of all that? Did you have a chance to see how they felt?
Thank God they did it, because if it didn't, we would have lost millions of men in invading Japan.
Yeah.
So thank goodness they did that.
Yeah.
But,
Well, I bet China, did you have any interesting stories about your stay in China?
yeah, I didn't bring as I said, I was a mess officer, and the men were stealing all the cutlery, the knives, forks, and spoon.
Really?
And there were times I didn't have enough to give it to the men. So one day I decided I'm going to fix them. So as they went out the door, I grabbed the knives and forks and spoon. And I should have brought the cartoon. One of the men drew a cartoon, and here I am with the epaulets on. I was a captain at that time, and with all the knives and forks in my hand, and a little article said, enlisted men don't eat with knives and forks, the officers do. And I have that cartoon, I still have that at home. It was funny. So, but I really didn't mind the service. It was really easy.
Yeah. Do you, when the war was over in Europe, where were you at that time? When the war was over in Europe,
Yeah.
D-Day, where were you when that happened?
Oh, I was in Dover, Delaware.
Okay, you were back at
I
that.
was back here, yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, that's, so I didn't, I was, so we were thankful that it was over.
Yeah.
But I didn't have any bad situations. I had pretty easy situations.
Have you ever been back to China since your
No, but
service?
I made friends with a guy who owned a big company in Hong Kong. Leon Ma, his name was. And I got very friendly with him. And I corresponded with him until he died. Mm-hmm. And then I kept corresponding with his son. And but lately I haven't heard from him, but I've talked to him on the phone. They spoke English very, very well.
Yeah.
And they had a very, very good, excellent business over in Hong Kong.
Oh.
He owned a business, but no, I never went to that part of China. Mm-hmm. I've been to where am I thinking? I can't think any.
Maybe Shanghai or one of the larger cities?
Huh?
One of the larger cities in China? Have you been
No,
to?
I've never been to China. I was in Kunming, China. That was that was over the hump from India,
Okay.
with a Burma Road.
Oh, okay.
That's the only part of China I was ever in. I never went to Hong Kong or anything like that.
So that would be clear in the western part of
No.
China?
No, I never.
Okay. Well, we like to hear some stories of things that happened in your service. Anything you want to tell us about that? Like you and Clark Gable, did you have any?
Yeah. He was well thought of, very well thought of. And the guys all liked him. Mm-hmm. He was I only saw him a couple of times. As I said, I was stationed in Miami Beach, and I was married at the time, and I thought, well, I want to get my wife down here, so I walked down the street and knocked on this one door. They had a sign out that they were renting rooms, and so I told them that I'd like to bring my wife down, and they said, well, we'll rent the room to you, and that was only about from here to the parking lot away from where I was living in a hotel, big deal in a hotel, you know, and it was a short distance to where she was living, and so in the evenings I could go down and visit with her.
Oh, that's great.
It was So I don't know how long we stayed. We stayed, I think it was 90 days. Didn't they call them 90-day
90-day
wonders?
wonders, yeah.
That's what I
Yeah.
was.
Okay,
That's what they call it.
good. So tell us then, you came back,
Oh,
you
yeah.
re-enlisted for 1 year and it
Yeah.
got you home. And that was in Dover, you said?
Dover, Delaware.
Okay.
And I was able to, my wife stayed in Long Island, didn't come to Dover with me. But on weekends, I'd get the train and come back to Long Island. And
And what was your job in Dover? What were you doing?
we were discharging the men and taking all their equipment and putting it in putting them in warehouses. That's what we were. And the main thing was discharging all the men.
Okay.
But
So this was, what, in 1945, 46, right in that area?
yeah, I guess. See, I'm very bad at dates or time or anything like that.
I'm pulling these from your notes, though, too.
The what?
So I saw your notes.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
that's about the time you were there. So that was for 1 more year?
Yeah, 1 more year.
Okay,
And then I contacted this guy that was in Nashville, Tennessee,
yeah.
and he put me on right away. But I lived with my in-laws for about a year or two. By that time, we had 2 children
So that was that
in Long Island.
in Long Island?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I had to. Well, I worked in the bank. When I worked in the bank, I lived in Long Island too. But so I was accustomed to traveling in New York.
Yeah.
So then finally they sent me to Cincinnati, and I thought, we thought there were a bunch of
Hicks out here in Cincinnati.
well, we thought there were a lot of Indians.
Really?
Indians. But it was great for me. I made a lot of good friends, and I did well in selling the printing, and so.
And so you stayed with that company, then you're...
Oh well, I only stayed with them for about 9 or 10 years,
Yeah.
and they never could do things right. They'd always. I was putting out fires more than I was doing anything else. They'd print something and they'd print it wrong. And I'd have to,
So you had to chase and correct it for them, right?
it wasn't any fun. So finally I quit them and I went with another company.
That's a
I
pretty
went I changed jobs twice. As long as you're selling and you're on straight commission, you can get a job anywhere.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So there's no,
Yeah. Did you have something, Dave?
Just got some pictures and stuff there if you want.
Okay. Okay, so then you came back, and when you were out of the service then,
oh
you
yeah.
already had 2 children at that point?
Yeah,
Is that right?
one when I was overseas, we had one. Yeah, I had 4. I have 4 altogether. One was born here in Cincinnati, and one was born in Nashville, Tennessee, and another one. Where was the other one? The other 2. I can't remember. Yeah.
Do you ever have reunions?
I had a reunion for my Motto baseball team.
You're not old baseball team.
Yeah. I ran a knothole team for about 5 years, and they were good here in Cincinnati, and they were good. They were, boy, we had a good team, and so after we disbanded, I decided I'm going to get a hold of them. They were all scattered all over the United States, and I was able to contact a great many, 22 of them, and they all came to my house.
Is that right?
Yeah, oh, it was wonderful. It was really nice. They all had good jobs, and they were some of them were in Utah, And it was really fun to see them all again. But they were good kids and good baseball players.
And when was your reunion?
The what?
How long ago was that reunion?
Oh, that's been 10 years ago.
I'll be darned.
Two of them are doctors. One's name is
Well,
Brett.
because of your good coaching. You gave them
Good
a
coaching.
good solid
That's
foundation.
what they told me. I was a good coach.
Yeah.
We won a lot of games.
They all came. That's remarkable. That's remarkable.
They were good.
Do you have any impressions of any of the top officers in the war? Like,
Yeah, a lot of them were phonies.
were they?
The one that was over me in Nashville, naturally he was a civilian, but they got him out of the civilian, and he didn't know nothing. He didn't know. I had to do what he wanted. He was a major and I was a captain, so I wasn't impressed with him at all. That was the end. But I got by.
Do you have any do you have any funny stories from the war that you remember that
Well,
funny good experiences,
the
different
one
experiences?
we had a lot of Chinese that were supposed to be guarding us, because in China they have a lot of they have what they call governors. They have their own. They don't have their own army, and they would attack one another. So we had some Chinese supposedly protecting us while we were in Kunming, China. And one day I was looking out the window, and here was our guard, and he was stealing eggs from us. So I figured, I'm going to get that sucker.
Yeah.
So I went outside and I watched him. He put the eggs in his pocket. So I went outside and I raised Cain with him, and I crushed him.
I can see that coming. Yeah.
Crushed it. And that's how I got so friendly with this Chinese. He was in charge of this wealthy guy. He was in charge of all the Chinese that were in we called it a hostel, and I was in charge of the American men that were there. And one of these governors came over to him and burst into his house. He only had a room in his room, and he had candy that I had given him, and accused him of stealing candy. I was furious, so I got a hold of that Chinese guy, and I raised Cain with him, and that's why I got so friendly with this other fellow, because he appreciated me.
Saved him, yeah.
And yeah.
Well, now, I'm interested, what was the purpose of our being in China where you were located at that time? What was
Well, I was in Army Airway Communications.
Okay.
Our men were all scattered all around in China.
Okay.
And how should I? They would not transfer. They would be in contact with various locations all through China. That's the only way I can explain it.
Were they, I just don't have enough background, I guess, to know at that point in time what we had in China at the time in terms of our armed forces.
We had communications. We had. That's what it was called, Army Airway Communications.
Okay.
And quite frankly, I forget. It's been so long ago, I can't
Okay.
remember. But we had about a couple hundred men there, and they would be in contact with outlying districts and keep in touch with them.
In China.
That's all I can remember.
Okay. Okay. So, you want to tell us, and you came back and you worked for the printing company, and you had
Yeah.
these 2 jobs, okay, but you lived here in Cincinnati ever since
I lived here for 50 years.
50 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
I liked it in here.
Uh-huh.
It was good to me. I made a lot of good friends and good customers. Customers from what was it? Oh, Newtone Chimes. I think they're out of business now.
They are, yeah, I know.
I read that today.
Yeah.
And Palm Beach Company. That company. I mean, they're not in business anymore either. But I made some good friends and good customers. So I did very well with the company.
What do you do now in your daily life to
What am I
keep
doing?
back? Yeah.
I'm bored to death. I'm living in Sutton Grove Apartments. It's a retirement home. Food is awful. Like Jesus. So, but you got to put up with it.
Yeah.
It's okay though. What the heck?
Yeah.
There's about 80 or 90 people live there, all old people.
Uh-huh.
It's
Any old World War II people there? You
Well,
talk
no,
to?
not. The guy I eat with is an interesting guy. He's a Marine. For 30 years he was a Marine. He was a sergeant, a gunnery sergeant he called himself. And he had a lot of responsibility. He repaired airplanes, and he was on the South Pacific. He's an interesting guy. Very interesting. So I eat with him. But other than that, I don't know what else to tell you.
Okay. You have.
Is there
Well,
a
that's
story
me and
behind
me-
those 2 names?
Me and my Jeep. Yeah, that's when I was in Kunming, China.
You're a good-looking guy.
Oh,
You still are. I didn't mean anything.
I get it.
Okay, so this is when you were in China.
Yeah, that was in China. Yeah, I had more. And another funny thing happened. The Chinese, they didn't have, they were so poor, they didn't have anything. They lived in like huts made of mud. And they take the mud out of the, whatever it's called, and build it up and
Like bricks?
make bricks out of them, yeah. And I'm driving down the road one day and I see this Chinese beating the hell out of a donkey. Oh, I was furious. So I got out of my Jeep and I went over to him. See, they didn't, you could tell them anything because they were stupid and they relied on the Americans. And I raised Cain with them and so I made him slide that poor the donkey was almost underwater. And I made him slide that poor donkey out of the mud and the water and save the donkey's life. That's another funny thing that happened.
What's the Pat and Mike?
That's my kids.
Oh, okay, that's
Yeah, I have a girl.
that Pat.
Pat is married to him. You know Pat.
Oh, I know Pat, yeah. Uh-huh.
I didn't have, and I have Mike, and I put their name on my Jeep.
Uh-huh. Good. Well, have you told the story?
I think so. I've told you everything I know. I'm a horse.
Want some water? There's some water right there.
Huh?
Would you like some water?
Yeah, I think I will. Sure that's not vodka?
No. Well, I'm going to spend, you had an interesting experience. You had a good experience, it sounds like.
Yeah, it was. I've had a good life, other than only my wife died. But I have. Everything has gone well for me, and I've been very lucky. You got to be lucky in your lifetime.
Yeah.
You got to have some luck.
I think so too.
Of course, sometimes your son-in-laws aren't so hot, but
Present company accepted.
the
Yeah.
present company accepted is
Well, I
right.
think he's a pretty nice guy, so.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay, you got a good one there.
What's that?
These are the pictures.
Yeah, that's
from-
why your Chinese friends.
Okay, I'm just going to quickly go through and maybe it'll jog your memory about something else that you know more about these than I do.
Yeah, I don't remember. A lot of that I don't remember.
Okay.
That's the plane that brought us into.
Was that the plane that was down in Lunken, that
Yeah.
B-17?
No. This I don't think that was a 17. I don't know if that was a 17. That flew me. What does it say? In India. That flew me to India.
Okay, yeah. November of 45.
45. Huh?
These are sort of small.
Yeah.
You must have left China in 45 because you were in the service to 46, right?
40.
1946.
Yeah.
The dates, I don't mean a thing anymore. Well, that's the boat that brought us back,
Oh, okay.
back from India.
Okay.
That's some of the guys some of the officers we had more than one officer in Kunming.
Okay.
There's me on the boat.
There you are,
Yeah,
That's probably from the boat.
yeah, that's a Suez Canal, isn't it?
It could be. It looks like a narrow body.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that ship took us out to the big ship.
Oh, okay. Okay. And that's probably the big ship there. Here.
Yeah,
And that's about it. Here's.
this is taken in New York on the beach.
Yeah. That's probably your daughter Pat.
Yeah, that's Pat.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
All right. That's.
Good. Okay. Well, Ed, we thank you for telling your story.
Yeah, I don't. My memory isn't what it used to be, though.
You know, one thing that's interesting, you're describing how the people lived in China.
Yeah, oh, it's
huts.
terrible.
There was a program on just last night about the Yangtze River in China.
Yeah,
And the Three Gorges Dam, and they showed how a lot of those people are living today, and they're not living much better today.
they are.
No. Now, a lot of people, I mean, the economy's growing in China now, and there's a middle class, but there's still a lot of people that live in the countryside, millions.
Well, it was awful the way they lived. They didn't have. They had no toilets. They had what they called honey buckets, and they'd mess in these honey buckets, and then they'd put the honey buckets on over their shoulders, and they'd dump it in the where they were growing food,
For fertilizer.
and they were filthy.
Yeah.
They had and they eat that food. We didn't eat it. We didn't eat any of that food.
Yeah.
But they were nice people. The Chinese, I like the Chinese. They were very nice people. But they had no furniture.
They're pretty.
And then they do dumb things like they take this mud and they keep building up their house with the mud, but they kept digging the mud out from from the base, and they dig so damn much out, then it collapsed. Then the whole damn house collapsed. Yeah.
Did you set them straight?
No, I didn't do anything. It just would collapse. We'd sit there and we'd laugh at. But they were nice people. They had a lot of respect for us. A lot of respect. And I can't remember the name of the famous Chinese guy that he had his own air force. Not Kunming. I can't think of it. But he was stationed in Kunming.
Okay.
And
This was a Chinese commander of
yeah,
the
he
Air
was.
Force?
I can't think of his name. But he was a famous Chinese guy, and we had our airplanes under his command over there.
Okay.
And
So were you there servicing his Air Force? Were
No,
you
we-
working together on that, or what?
I don't know what we did with him. Yeah, I think he had his own. He had his own. We didn't have anything to do with him. I knew he was there, but I can't think of what he was. But he was fighting on our side. I can't think. See, it's been many years, and I'm 90 years old, so
I know.
you got to make allowances. Well,
Okay, well,
am I released?
you're released. You did a great job.
Thank you.
You have a wonderful smile,
Well,
and we sure thank you for your service, and we thank you for
I
coming down here
appreciate
and
it.
doing this.
It's an honor
Yeah.
for you to have me down here.
I was just going to ask, have you ever seen the World War II memorial in Washington, D.C.?
Yes,
Have you?
yes.
Great.
I've been to Washington, and saw there's several memorials,
Yeah.
quite a few,
Oh, yeah.
for different reasons. Yeah, I went. I can't remember which ones they were, but and then they have what's his name? Oh, Lincoln Memorial is there too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, thanks for the
Okay.
spending time with us.
Should I give you this back?
Yeah, hang on
Okay.
to that.